And for a more in-depth look at these stories and the gap between the haves and have-nots, I have Gerald Celente, director of the Trends Institute, to talk to me from New York. Trends Research Institute, I should say. So, Gerald, the United States prides itself on being a country where people have equal opportunity and access to everything. That if you really want to improve your situation and live the American dream, you can. But realistically, the percentage of college grads that are unemployed is 5%, whereas the percentage of non-college grads that are unemployed is double that. And, you know, as you obviously know, getting a college degree isn't exactly cheap. Is it just becoming normal that people with money will succeed and those who don't have much money will have a tougher time getting a job or an education in this country? Clearly, if you look at these two stories, you see a huge difference between the lives the rich are leading in comparison to the poor.
Well, the college numbers are deceiving in themselves when they talk about 5% of the college grads are employed. That's just not true. You have millions of college grads that haven't entered the workforce yet, that haven't been able to get jobs out of college, and they have degrees in worthlessness, and they're $25,000 on average in debt. So a college education, what kind of job does that even buy you? What do? You have first choice at getting, you know, being a shelf stocker at Walmart's at 3 in the morning. So no, the jobs aren't being, the gap between the rich and the poor in the U.S. is the widest of any of the industrialized nations. Wages are stagnant. Median household income is below 2000 levels. It's only a small segment of the top that has all the cream. When you talk about those bonuses, $144 billion, those handful of Wall Streeters are the equivalent to a country that would rank 49th out of 134 countries in the world. We've said it since 2008 when the TARP programs began. It happened in front of everyone's eyes. Wall Street has hijacked Washington.
Yeah, that's a little scary when you put it like that, I have to admit. But speaking of jobs, you know, we heard how the optimistic projections that analysts had made that the unemployment rate would decrease actually didn't turn out to be true. Instead, it increased to 9.8%. Yet today, we're hearing that the number of job openings are higher than they've been in 2 years. Should we be feeling good about that, Gerald? Does this mean the unemployment rate will decrease soon?
Look where the jobs are being created. Home health care aides, in the hospitality sector at the higher end, in service sector jobs that pay pittance. These aren't living wages. Yes, there are jobs opened on the plantation, but look at the plantation owners' income. Record profits, the highest profits in American modern history on the top of the plantation. So yeah, there are some jobs on the plantation, but who wants them? And they're not going to get you through life.
And Gerald, I want to go back to Anastasia's story about Camden for a second. We're seeing these struggling towns trying to deal with their financial situations on a small scale. And, you know, despite the violence and chaos in Camden, the city council actually recently voted to lay off hundreds of police officers and firefighters. Is this their only option to stay afloat? What else can these towns do to prevent themselves from going under?
Listen, this is a national problem. Camden's only one of them. You have costs that are off the books in the trillions of dollars that cities aren't going to be able to meet in terms of benefits and retirements and health care. You're going to see a bust happen in the United States and cities that's going to rival what's going on in Ireland, what's going to happen in Portugal, what's happened in Greece. It's going worldwide. The American empire is unfolding and collapsing in front of everyone's eyes. It's the greatest bank robbery in world history, and the banks are doing the robbing. You mentioned earlier about the $100 billion plus of Obama's stimulus. How about the trillions that the Fed was putting under the table that we just found out about? 3.3 trillion going to banks all over the world and to their buddies.
So are we going to start seeing more middle-class towns in the United States heading in the same direction as Camden?
Oh, yeah, this is just the beginning. There's no way out. The only way out is to bring jobs back in. And the thing that you can never talk about, cut the military budget, bring the troops home, cut the bases, shut down the bases, end the wars, and stop spending trillions overseas that you could be rebuilding this country. But the politicians are in the pocket of the military-industrial complex and Wall Street. Wall Street has hijacked Washington. Only a child can't see the proof, or the ignorant, or the people that are getting paid off. All you have to do is look at the facts and add up the numbers.
And really quickly, I want to go back to those Wall Street bankers and their bonuses. You know, their bonuses and their salaries are set to increase by 4% this year. How is that possible, especially after all the talk about crackdown on Wall Street? How can these banks still be giving out bonuses after all of that? And on top of that, the research shows that revenue from these banks are actually decreasing, yet their pay is increasing. How does that work?
Again, we just saw from the Dodd-Frank bill, there was that one clause in there that's forcing the Fed to fess up to what they've been doing with our money. And they've been funneling it by the trillions to their banker buddies. I mean, who was the Treasury Secretary under George Bush? Henry Paulson. Where was he from? Goldman Sachs.
Right.
Who was the guy before, two guys before him under Clinton? Robert Rubin. Where was he from? Goldman Sachs.
You definitely see a revolving door between Washington and Wall Street. That's for sure, Gerald. Well, Gerald Celente, director of the Trends Research Institute, we appreciate your analysis as always.
Thank you.